shoeless feet, lonely eyes looking back at me. Will we leave behind the innocent to grieve on their own, on the run, when their lives have only begun? These could be our sons. And just like a drum, I can hear their hearts beating. I know my God won't let them be defeated. Every child has a dream to be loved. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Help us to remember children for a friend. Won't you look around? These are the lives that the world has forgotten, waiting for doors of our hearts and our homes to open. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these, when we love the least of these. If not us, who will be like Jesus to the least of these? If not us, tell me who will be like Jesus to the least of these. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love. Little hands, shoeless feet, lonely eyes looking back at me. Will we leave behind the innocent to grieve on their own, on the run, when their lives have only begun? These could be our daughters and our sons. And just like a drum, I can hear their hearts beating. I know my God won't Little hands, shoeless feet, lonely eyes looking back at me. Will we leave behind the innocent to grieve? On their own, on the run, when their lives have only begun. These could be our daughters and our sons. And just like a drum, I can hear their hearts beating. I know my God won't let them be defeated. Every child has a dream to belong and be loved. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these, when we love the least of these. Break our hearts once again. Help us to remember when we were only children hoping for a friend. Won't you look around? These are the lives that the world has forgotten, waiting for doors of our hearts and our homes to open. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, and free, shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these, when we love the least of these. If not us, who will be like Jesus to these? If not us, tell me who will be like Jesus, like Jesus to these. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love. Hands, shoeless feet, lonely eyes looking back at me. Will we leave behind the innocent to grieve? On their own, on the run, when their lives have only begun. These could be our daughters and our sons. And just like a drum, I can hear their hearts beating. I know my God won't let them be defeated. Every child has a dream to belong and be loved. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these, when we love the least of these. Break our hearts once again. Help us to remember when we were only children hoping for a friend. Won't you look around? These are the lives that the world has forgotten, waiting for doors of our hearts and our homes to open. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty.
morning. Welcome to the King's Report for Wednesday, May 17th, 2017. We're in the 8th year of Cheongi, 4th month, the 22nd day by the heavenly calendar. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second king of Cheongguk, Moon Hyung-jin, and we'll be going through the Rima and our news today from a Cheongguk perspective. Let me begin first with the weather. It's a cool 49 degrees in the Cheongguk area today, but as soon as the sun rises in about a half an hour, the temperature is going to start climbing pretty quickly, and we're going to get up to 90 degrees today. The original forecast, even up until yesterday, was that we wouldn't reach 90 until tomorrow, but that has changed, and now the forecast is for us to reach 90 today. And another 90-degree weather tomorrow, and then on Friday we'll start to cool down to 80, and then Saturday the low 70s, and then upper 60s, which is actually below normal. So we have wide fluctuations of temperature these days. Last Saturday we were at 50 degrees. It's a good time for us to be careful about our immune system because those fluctuations can really affect that, and especially in days like today, where more likely we'll be sweating a lot, but we don't get dehydrated. I want to go now to our Rima in Proverbs today, Proverbs chapter 20, verse 3. It is an honor for a man to cease from strife, but every fool will be meddling. And in our Cheonseongyung Rima, I'm in Book 5, Earthly Life and the Spirit World, chapter 5, section 3 on page 686. Your natural parents, actually the Korean says physical parents, so let's go with that. Your physical parents and true parents have different concepts of love. Your physical parents teach you love centered on your physical body, and true parents teach you true love centered on the spirit world. I wanted to focus a little bit, especially on that Cheonseongyung Rima. True Father taught us that God is absolute, unique, unchanging, and eternal. He described those as the four important aspects of God: absolute, unique, unchanging, and eternal. Of course, a lot of people think that as soon as Father went to spirit world, God went through a lot of changes, but that's definitely not what Father was teaching. And so also true love is absolute, unique, unchanging, and eternal. And that is the kind of love that true parents are teaching us, And certainly anyone who teaches anything other than that is definitely not true parents. Anyone who says that, now this is changing today, that is changing, that is changing. God never changes. Sometimes the expression of that love will change. There are many different expressions of love, and how it is translated into human language, how it is translated into human understanding can certainly change. But God himself is absolute, unique, unchanging, and eternal. That's really wonderful. And one of the aspects of that true love is that it helps us grow. It encourages growth. One way in which it does that is that it gives us the responsibility for ourselves to grow, and that's where I think the verse from Proverbs comes in, because it is an honor for a man to cease from strife, but every fool will be meddling. Some people want to get involved in every situation that they see around them, every problem they see around them. They want to get involved in, want to fix it. But that's not true love. That's not what God does for us. He doesn't meddle in our responsibility, especially in our portion of responsibility. He to struggle through that and work through that, so that we can solve those problems ourselves and become more mature and become closer to the ideal that he has for us. If he were to simply solve the problems for us, when would we learn? How would we grow? It's like a teacher who is trying to teach mathematics or the multiplication table to the students. And they draw on the board a problem, say 3 times 4. Well, what's the easiest way for that teacher to solve that problem? Obviously, the easiest way would be for a teacher to write equals 12 on the board. But when will the students learn them? No, the students themselves have to be able to learn how to solve these problems rather than having the teacher give them the answer every time. So also, God stays out of our problems, does not intervene in our problems many times. He does not meddle in our problems. And so also the second king of Cheongguk has a similar policy. When people are fighting, he does not get involved in that, because people have to work that out themselves. About a year or so ago, there was a problem that we were experiencing in one of our that people were experiencing in one of our European countries, where two sort of groups of people had a very strong difference of opinion, and even in one of those groups resorted to reporting people to the police and having them arrested for certain crimes, and even having and the situation wound up where people went to jail. So what did and certainly the Family Federation at that time demanded that the king intervene in this situation, saying that people's freedoms were being violated, or that human rights was being violated. And they even sent the members from one of the organizations, the affiliated organizations that the Family Federation has, to that country to try and deal with that situation. But the king's policy throughout was, no, we don't get involved. We don't get involved, that this situation has to be worked out by the people on the ground. And the Family Federation people were all up in arms saying, oh, you're like Pontius Pilate washing your hands. Well, no, that's not true. That's not true at all. Because there is a big difference between God not interfering in our portion of responsibility and Pontius Pilate choosing to not involve himself in the crucifixion of Jesus. In the one case, God is giving us the opportunity to solve our own problems. Whereas Pontius Pilate, he was a judge. He was in the position where he was supposed to say, oh, this man is innocent. He was the judge. That was his job, but he chose to shirk that responsibility. But it is not the king's responsibility to get involved in every situation, to meddle in every situation. It is, in fact, the idea of God's kingdom, the idea of Cheongguk, is that sovereignty lies at the lowest level, at the local level, and even at the family. Father said that most problems can be resolved within the family, and that is how that was very fundamental to his vision for Cheongguk. That is how we build a society that does not have judges or police and he said even that a society without laws, where people live according to their own conscience, because situations are resolved within a family. That means that the government doesn't get involved. Other families don't get involved, but allow the family to deal with these situations on their own. That is the eventual vision that Father has for Cheongguk. It's really difficult sometimes to see things going on and feel that you have the solution, and you want to meddle in that way. If they would only understand the situation the way I do, they wouldn't be fighting like that. They would, you might feel. But it is up to individuals, it is up to families to resolve these situations. It is an honor for a man to cease from strife. But every fool will be meddling. The fool, because they think that they are showing how smart they are, showing how how much more they know than others. But it is, though, a fool that thinks that he can solve the situations of the fights of other people. They need to resolve these on their own. And that is, in fact, I think, true love. All right, let's take a break now, and we'll be coming back we'll be going through the news from a Cheongguk perspective when we come back.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology, it's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood, the history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun, to the best in compact concealed carry, Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today. Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology, it's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood, the history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun, to the best in compact concealed carry, Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, May 17th, 2017. We're in the 8th year of Chungi, 4th month, and 22nd day by the heavenly calendar. And I'm joined now with Mr. Greg Knoll, entrepreneur and a small business owner and farmer. Thank you very much, Greg, for coming in this morning.
Tim.
I want to go through the headlines first. Let's start out with Breitbart this morning. Of course, everybody's very excited about this New York Times article that I guess, so what happened was that what's alleged anyway is that what the New York Times is reporting is that after Comey had a meeting with President Trump back in February, immediately after that meeting, Comey sat down and wrote a summary of the meeting and his notes of the meeting and so forth as a memo. And then after he was fired by President Trump in the last few days, one of Comey's aides or somebody close to him had a telephone conversation with a New York Times reporter and read part of that memo to the New York Times reporter. And the New York Times reporter then used that to write a story about what went on during that lunch back in February. And everybody's all excited because according to the New York Times report, President Trump asked Comey to sort of go easy on Jeff and to sort of let him go. This was the day, actually the lunch took place the day after the president fired Flynn at that time. And President, the day after he fired Flynn, was asking Comey to let Flynn go or let him go or let this go or something like that.
Take it easy on him.
Take it easy on him, or actually the words used were let it go or something like that. So everybody's talking, okay, obstruction of justice. Some Democrats are even talking impeachment. So anyway, there are again, countless articles on this situation. There's the New York Times report, and then there's everybody else. Like an explosion of articles. So let's go through the headlines, and many of the headlines will be relating to that, and that's why I explained that. If you're just waking up this morning, seeing this for the first time. So Breitbart's main headline is Comey strikes back. Leaked Comey memo claims Trump tried to shut down Flynn investigation. NYT oversells Comey's revenge story. CNN's bash. Deep State gets even with POTUS. POTUS, of course, being President of the United States. Matthews, we're on the trail to impeachment. CNN's Gergen, we're in impeachment territory. Meanwhile, Trump's legislative agenda slows to a crawl. Kimberly Guilfoyle to the rescue. She's the person, Fox News reporter or host being considered for the job of a White House spokesman to replace Sean Spicer. Fox host interested in White House press secretary job. Dems plan summer camps for Trump resistors. 5 questions ABC won't answer about canceling Tim Allen's show. Oh, so there are other articles. Tim Allen's. White House no comment on Seth Rich investigation. So what's this Seth Rich? Well, Seth Rich was a young man who unfortunately died, was killed, murdered in Washington, D.C. Last July of last year. And he was a staff member of the Democratic National Committee. And at that time, the police said, well, it's just a robbery. It was just a sort of a, he wasn't targeted or anything like that. It was just a random homicide in Washington, D.C. But the family hired an investigator, and he's been investigating, and now the investigator says that he believes that Seth Rich was communicating with WikiLeaks, and that actually Seth Rich was the leak, not Russia, but Seth Rich was the leak that was providing information to WikiLeaks, all the emails from Democratic National Committee. Anyway, we'll go into that later, perhaps, if we have time. 4 unanswered questions surrounding murdered DNC staffer. It's Trump versus Deep State on Jerusalem embassy move. The idea of the United States right now has its embassy in Israel, located in Tel Aviv. But Israel would like for all countries to have their embassies in Jerusalem. But I think most countries still have them in Tel Aviv. But Trump has said that he gave that promise that during the election campaign that he would move the U.S. Embassy to Tel Aviv. And actually, it's not a matter of picking up a building and moving it.
Move from Tel Aviv
to Jerusalem, yes. Actually, it's only a matter of moving a signboard. Right now, you just move the signboard and put it on, because there's a U.S. consulate in Jerusalem. I was there, actually, and it's right there by Independence Park. All you have to do is stick that signboard on that building next to Independence Park, and you've moved the embassy. But politically, it has huge implications and symbolism. Rabbi Shmuley, we do not forget, Trump promised Jerusalem embassy. Erdogan, Trump election gives Middle East new hope in combating terrorists. Boom, Atlanta Fed sees GDP growing at more than 4% in second quarter. Oh yeah, we're all getting richer. we didn't know that. My rent's going up. Pinkerton, the U.S.-China competition in cyberspace and outer space. Ann Coulter, conservatives weigh in on outsider to replace Comey. North Korean hackers suspected of WannaCry ransomware attack. By now, I'm sure everybody's aware of what that's all about. That happened last Saturday. Disney refuses ransom to hackers who stole Pirates of the Caribbean. Survey, Democrats rally behind fake news industry. Dozens of Barrio 18 gangsters escape military prison. Gay journalist who came out as conservative shouted down at Portland State University. Even if you're gay, it doesn't counteract the fact that you're conservative.
Free speech is going away.
Dellingpo, how Twitter SJWS turned me into a fake news hate meme. Twitter anyway. Cowherd, Kaepernick is running out of liberal cities to play in. Celebrity chef Sandra Lee, I can't stomach Paul Ryan. All right, and then on drudgereport.com, the Comey Diaries, leak turns into flood. Leaks turn into flood. Networks push impeachment. 8 days that shook Washington. Washington's been shaking, I think, more than 8 days.
That's a good thing, right?
I think so, yeah. Reporters excused Obama for giving intel to Russia. Erdogan's bodyguards in violent clash with protesters in D.C. The Rock could win. He was thinking of running for president, I think. Hackers that leaked NSA spy tools likely include U.S. Insider. That was behind the ransomware attack, apparently. Officials feared release. Militarism, greed at roots of outbreak. Still talking about the ransomware. And now, update, queer punk band, dramatic fallout, sex abuse allegations rock, swastika on the beach. Shock as Union Station Vid, I guess that's in Washington, D.C. Shock as Union Station Vid screen airs porn during rush hour. 200 nude models to descend on Times Square. And then babies from skin cells, ? Japan's princess to marry ocean-loving legal assistant. 7,000 birds seized in cockfighting raid. Wow, 7,000 birds. Chelsea Manning to walk free, developing, leaving prison 28 years early. I think she was pardoned by Obama or something like that.
Not sure.
I have to look into that. Black Harvard students holding own graduation. Man sues date for texting during movie. Hey, I'm paying for this movie. I don't know if he was, I don't know these days, does the man still pay? If he paid, I could see, yeah. Ron Paul versus the White House. Michael Moore, Harvey Weinstein, reteam for Trump Doc 11-9. Okay, I guess Michael Moore is making a new documentary. Snap hit with lawsuits alleging inflated growth. Fidget spins Texas girl to operating room, disrupting children's learning, principals say. New Orleans crews begin removing statue of Confederate general. Facebook knows who we meet in real life. Refunds advertisers after measurement bug. Fed subpoena records for $3.5 million mystery mortgage on Manafort's home. Down sunburned at Disney. A man busted for second time in 3 months for family violence involving pork chop.
Got to study that one.
Study that one. All right. Spornosexual workout app. Okay. And a student surgeon who stabbed Tinder boyfriend could avoid prison thanks to extraordinary talent. Dems launch resistant summer. They push impeach. Warren Trump obsession will hurt party. Murdoch to rally Fox News troops fall to third place in primetime demo. MSNBC best week since Bush. And NYT Israel provided intel president shared with Russia. North Korea nukes more powerful than feared. Cyber sleeper cells prep war contingency. Frontier flight attendants sue for right to pump breast milk on job. Police seek man dressed as giant penis who witnessed attack. Police seek man dressed as giant penis who witnessed attack. Okay. Democrats cool with mooching off parents far longer than Republicans. So if you want to kick your kids out of the house, make them register as Republicans. Woman drove drunk with bearded dragon lizard in her. Yes, Drudge loves those headlines. Let's go
Where's
now.
the world news and all of that?
Where's the world news and all that? Yes. So let's go to this thing about the New York Times story. And the Daily Mail, which Drudge links to, has a good summary of not only the New York Times story, but also the various reactions to that. So I think that's probably a good place for us to begin. And it says here, ousted FBI Chief James Comey claimed in write-up of dinner with Trump that President asked him to let go investigation into National Security Advisor Mike Flynn because he's a good guy. Now remember, this was the day after Flynn was fired. Memo written by fired FBI Director James Comey after February 14 meeting with Donald Trump describes the president asking him to drop his Mike Flynn probe. The White House denies the claim, saying it's not a truthful or accurate portrayal of the conversation. Comey's memo also described a memo request to prosecute and jail reporters who report on classified information leaked to them. Just 5 days ago, Trump warned Comey that he might have tapes of their conversations. Now it's Comey on the offense, with his associates reading portions of the explosive memo to a New York Times reporter. Why only portions, do you suppose? Too long? New York Times reporter was busy. Senator Chuck Schumer said on the Senate floor that he was shaken by the news, and Representative Nancy Pelosi raised the possibility of obstruction of justice. The federal law against obstruction is purposely broad and could form the basis for an impeachment case against Trump, it says. Former FBI, those were the sort of the Daily Mail headlines, and here's the article. Former FBI Director James Comey accused President Donald Trump of asking him to close a federal investigation into disgraced General Mike Flynn during a February 14th meeting in the Oval Office. I hope, quote, I hope you can let this go, unquote, Trump told Comey, according to a copy of a memo read to a New York Times reporter. Comey reportedly wrote the memo immediately after he met with Trump as part of an effort to document situations in which the president sought to interfere in the FBI's operations. The White House quickly fired back, claiming in a statement that the president has never asked Mr. Comey or anyone else to end any investigation, including any investigation involving General Flynn. On Tuesday night, Jason Chaffetz, chairman of the House Oversight Committee, fired off a letter. Everybody's firing off a letter to the acting FBI director, Andrew McCabe, requesting to see all memoranda, notes, summaries, and recordings between Comey and Trump by May 24th. That gives them a week, doesn't it?
The White House is requesting now.
No, that's the House Oversight Committee chairman. So that's the House, and I think he's a Republican. The White House issued a statement that read, "The president has the utmost respect for our law enforcement agencies in all investigations. This is not a truthful or accurate portrayal of the conversation between the president and Mr. Comey." The White House also steered reporters toward McCabe's congressional testimony from last week, that's the acting FBI director, where he said, quote, "There has been no effort to impede our investigation to date," unquote, McCabe told Florida Senator Marco Rubio during a Senate Intelligence Committee hearing. "Simply put, sir," quote, this is in quotes, "you cannot stop the men and women of the FBI from doing the right thing, protecting the American people and upholding the Constitution," and McCabe added. It remains unclear whether McCabe, who, by the way, is a Clinton person, it remains unclear whether McCabe was referring to an investigation into the possible ties between Russia and the Trump campaign, which is separate from the investigation into Flynn. All these investigations, you can get them mixed up. So many investigations. Chaffetz, a Utah Republican, tweeted on Tuesday, at GOP Oversight is going to get the Comey memo if it exists. I need to see it sooner rather than later. I have my subpoena pen ready. Hours later, he fired off a letter to McCabe. If it takes hours to write a letter, anyway, everybody's, the use of the word fired seems to be. Anyway, Chaffetz cited the New York Times report, which stated Mr. Comey created similar memos, including some that are classified, about every phone call and meeting he had with the president, the two people said. Chaffetz wrote, "If true, these memoranda raise questions as to whether the president attempted to influence or impede the FBI's investigation as it relates to Lieutenant General Flynn. Quote, so the committee can consider that question and others provide no later than May 24, 2017, all memoranda, notes, summaries, and recordings referring or relating to any communications between Comey and the president," unquote. And FBI's agents' notes are often held up in court as credible evidence, according to the New York Times. And now, of course, because the New York Times has done that, has reported that, of course, the mainstream media is going crazy. One article here points out that now every time a Democratic guest appears on a television show, there's always one question they have to answer. That is, are you ready to impeach Trump yet? It's happening every time because the media is really, they want to get the impeachment. And this article is describing that.
This clearly shows Trump is doing his job.
Yes. It does, doesn't it? He's really shaking up Washington. And now here this article describes how, even before the Comey situation with the Russia situation, that just in any 24-hour period, you can find that the media begging people basically to say that they're going to impeach. CNN's Wolf Blitzer is bringing impeachment up three times just Tuesday evening alone.
It makes sense. Trump wants his campaign promise was to drain the swamp. Part of the swamp is the media, part of is the dark state.
Mm-hmm.
All of these institutions have to be shaken if we're going to get to the core of corruption in Washington. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense that there's this chorus of impeachment going on because he is threatening their very existence, their philosophy, their outlook on life. Everything is being challenged. So it makes total sense. If there wasn't this call for impeachment, we would probably not have the right man in the office.
All right, the call for impeachment is proof that Trump is doing his job. Let's take a break, and we'll be back in a minute or so.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
Good morning. Welcome to the King's Report for May 17th, 2017. We're on the 8th year of Chang'e, the 4th month, and the 22nd day by the heavenly calendar. And we're going through the news from a Chungnyu perspective this morning. And we're focusing in on the New York Times article about the alleged Comey memo describing a lunch conversation that he had with President Trump on February 14th. And the major media's explosion over that, and their and their call for impeachment. And before the break, Greg was pointing out that if these people were happy with Trump, if they weren't calling for his impeachment, we would know that we had the wrong man in the office, because we want someone who's going to really create a lot of trouble and to turn Washington upside down. And this article points out just how upside down things have become. It says, since the Washington Post report Monday that President Trump shared classified information with the Russian ambassador during an Oval Office meeting last week, the major media seems to smell blood in the water. Over the last 24 hours, almost every interview with Democratic politicians has included a question about whether we're getting closer to impeaching the president. CNN's Wolf Blitzer is leading the charge, bringing up impeachment 3 separate times Tuesday evening alone. During an interview with Senator Angus King, independent of Maine, about a New York Times report alleging Trump asked former FBI Director James Comey to drop the agency's investigation into General Michael Flynn, Blitzer asked, hopefully, are we getting closer to the possibility of yet another impeachment? Has Christmas come yet? That was me. Blitzer also flatly told Senator King that if the Times report is accurate, it's an impeachable offense, not even phrasing the statement as a question. Moments later, Blitzer asked Representative Elijah Cummings, a Democrat of Maryland, if the New York Times report would provide enough ammunition for impeachment proceedings against Trump. Is that impeachable if it's an obstruction of justice? Blitzer asked. Please, yeah. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And that's just Tuesday night. As many in the media are frequently attempting to bait their Democratic guests into calling for impeachment proceedings. But then some Democrats, though, are saying, wait a second, you guys, let's not get too excited. Democrats warn their Trump obsession will hurt the party.
That's right. I think that's true.
Top Democratic leaders gathered Tuesday to deliver. Yesterday was a busy day. Tuesday to deliver a stark warning. Their party needs to do more than just talk about President Donald Trump.
Trump thrives on attention. Have you noticed that?
Yes.
I mean, before he was president, he was the master at dominating the media. And
Yes.
he's continuing that tradition as president. And so he, for better or for worse, he knows how to be headline news all over the world, which is good in a way because his message does get out.
Judging by their own words at the first major party catcall of 2017, that's no easy task. A day after a report that the president revealed highly sensitive intelligence from a U.S. ally to Russian leaders, a litany of top Democratic officials and possible 2020 presidential candidates tried to find a balance between denouncing the latest Trump controversy and making time to explain their own vision and agenda. They had assembled in Washington at the, quote, Ideas Conference, unquote. That's the actual name of the conference, Ideas Conference.
It should be called impeachment conference.
I was thinking they need to be a little more original than Ideas Conference. But anyway, hosted by the liberal think tank Center for American Progress. That's Soros funded. An event designed to give the leaders a chance to explain how they would rebuild the party. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, she actually took Hillary Clinton's seat after Hillary Clinton became Secretary of State. Long seen as a potential presidential contender, said the Senate should not approve a new FBI director until a special prosecutor is appointed to investigate ties between Trump's campaign and Russian officials, even as she laid out plans for a federally mandated 12 weeks of paid family leave. So she has to denounce Trump, but then also at the end stick in this 12 weeks of paid family leave. Progressive icon Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts called for a constitutional amendment that would restrict the influence of money on politics, even as she warned Trump that America would stand up to autocracy. And Senator Kamala Harris of California, who like Warren and Gillibrand is seen as a potential White House contender, demanded that Republicans put country over party and support a special prosecutor, even as she outlined a detailed proposal to end the war on drugs. Tellingly, all three also emphasized that the Democratic Party needs to make sure it broadens what the party stands for beyond outright opposition to Trump. It was a theme repeated often Tuesday, despite the repeated focus on Trump.
They can't help themselves.
They can't help themselves.
4 months in office and talk about partisan politics.
Yes.
I mean, this is really what the American people are sick and tired of. And part of the reason that Trump got elected is that they wanted somebody with a more independent voice, somebody that wasn't born and raised in the Washington swamp, so an outsider coming in. And what are the Democrats doing? They are totally playing the partisan politics.
And the media as well.
And the media, because the media and the left politicians are really of the same cloth.
Mm-hmm. Well, when he was running for president, he was running against not just the Democrats, but also the Republicans and the media and Hollywood and much of the financial establishment. And so it's not surprising that after getting into office, he's still fighting all these forces. And I'm sure it's a very lonely fight, but it's one that he has that he has picked up, and he's doing a pretty good job, I would say.
Big question is, what did President Trump tweet? Do we have the latest news on that? Because he usually comes out with his own one or two sentences regarding these things, where communicating directly with the American people.
Okay, let me see if he's tweeted anything this morning. It may take me a few minutes to get to his account. Let's see here.
You're dealing with, I think, the King day before that percent of the media are registered Democrats. I think it was 98% donated to liberal politics, a very deep establishment when you're talking about impeachment until they're blue in the face. Trump is no longer fit for office. He's violated the law. But in reality, I think this is going to be to their own demise. I feel they're digging their own grave as they go down this path of impeachment.
Okay, I'm on the real Donald Trump Twitter account right now. He hasn't tweeted anything for 14 hours. The most recent was it was a great honor to welcome the President of Turkey. And then before that, the U.S. industrial production surged in April. And before that, this is 22 hours now, I've been asking Director Comey and others from the beginning of my administration to find the leakers in the intelligence community. As president, I wanted to share with Russia at the openly scheduled White House meeting, which I have an absolute right to do, facts pertaining to terrorism and airline flight safety, humanitarian reasons, plus I want Russia to greatly step up their fight against ISIS and terrorism, and so forth. Yeah. So, I don't know, maybe he's still composing his tweets, but he hasn't tweeted anything this morning. Well, maybe we'll keep an eye on that, yeah. So the let's see, where was I here? And now the Democrats are launching what they call Resistance Summer, and this is going to start apparently in June.
They're a month late.
A month late?
We're supposed to start in May.
The Democratic National Committee is attempting to harness resistance to President Trump into a national effort aimed at building out state and local party ranks. Billed as the Resistance Summer, quote unquote, the DNC will hold events with allies across the country in early June before sponsoring a national training summit in the hopes of registering scores of new Democratic voters. The move is the first concrete action from Democrats' promise to return to a 50-state solution in light of massive Republican gains in state legislatures across the country. There's been an explosion of activism and energy after the election of Donald Trump, and we need to turn this moment into a movement, DNC Chairman Tom Perez said in a statement, quote, as the Democratic Party, it is our role to support this activism and energy and convert it into electoral wins up and down the ballot by making sure state parties have the tools and resources they need to succeed. Minnesota Representative Keith Ellison, the deputy chairman of the DNC, joined Perez in a statement calling the summer action the starting point for the party's efforts to organize the resistance movement into a large political force. We have never had a better opportunity to win up and down the ballot, but showing up is not enough. We have to organize, knock on doors, and motivate voters to the polls. Only then can we deliver what hard-working American families need, he added. The centerpiece of the effort will be matching grants to help state parties fund organizers and fellows. According to the Associated Press, the initial grant money will go to Arizona, Massachusetts, Michigan, Kansas, and South Dakota, a cross-section of the states with a variety of electoral needs. Massachusetts? Massachusetts Democratic Party needs help? That's interesting.
My prediction, this will fail miserably because they're going to rally all the radical left, basically, in all these states. And I think your average American can see right through this. They are sick and tired of these anti-free speech people. They're not liberal progressives. They're anti-liberal. They're anti-progressive. And that's going to be the face of the new Democratic Party. And I think the American people will say, no, this does not represent my values. Certainly the Judeo-Christian foundation of this country will rise up against that type of new America.
part of the problem is that, the Democrats seem to, or the left seems to be more sort of united many times. Republicans seem to, and the right seems to be kind of, less willing to get up and rise up and with force, or even to demonstrate, or if you have rioting in the streets, it's not going to be conservatives, is it?
Right. Exactly.
It's going to be
It's a silent majority.
yeah. And of course, last November they certainly rose up and expressed themselves at the ballot box. But that's one thing that if the Democrats are going to, and if the left is going to rise up in this way, the right also needs to rise up in a similar way, so as to protect Donald Trump. I think it's about time that people started protecting our president. There was seems to have gone off the news this morning, but yesterday there was a news that Jamie Dimon was being pressured by his stockholders to disavow President Trump. And he was saying, well, I'm a loyal American. I support my president. But he was getting criticism for that. So I think more people need to be doing that. That may have been lower down in the Breitbart that I didn't hit this morning. Oh yeah, here it is. J.P. Morgan chases Jamie Dimon. I'll help Trump because I'm a patriot. But shareholders demand that he disavow Trump. All right, we'll take a break now, and we'll be back in a minute or so with more news from a Tony Group perspective.
Car Arms, M Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearm. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship and technology, it's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood, to the best in concealed carry, Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
So Breitbart, in writing about this, I'm going to skip over the initial paragraphs that simply repeat what we've already said this morning. If anything justifies President Trump's decision to fire Comey, it would be this effort, referring to the leaking of the memo, would be this effort to leak details of their private conversations to the media with the obvious intention of causing the maximum political damage to the president. But this dagger, Breitbart says, is a rather dull blade. It lacks any apparent quid pro quo, a sense that Trump was offering something to Comey in exchange for dropping the investigation. Trump had already suggested in January that he would keep Comey on in his job as FBI director. The conversation in the memorandum happened in February. Moreover, the New York Times seems to oversell the story, interpreting the word hope as a request, assuming for the sake of argument that the Comey memo was accurate. What Trump says, I hope you can let this go. I hope you can see your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go. He's a good guy. I hope you can let this go, is never actually framed as a request at all. Yet the Times calls it a request and an effort to interfere in the investigation. This is a rather liberal, pun intended, Breitbart says, spin on Trump's words. Democrats predictably are pouncing on the story, but so far is just the latest hysterical episode in their effort to deny the legitimacy of the November election. If this is the best that Comey's paper trail can produce, his revenge may backfire, at least in political terms. So yeah, Breitbart seems to be agreeing with you that this could backfire. That I hope I can get $1 million today. Does that mean I'm asking you for $1 million?
Yeah, this is a conversation between the president and the FBI director, and he certainly has the right to express his opinion and views on things without using intimidation. He's just making I guess even request is too strong of a word. He's just expressing his hope and desire that Mike Flynn he's a good man, a patriotic man. It was a shame he wasn't able to go forward in his position, but yeah, it seems very reasonable to me. I mean, if this goes so far, the people are going to be so paranoid to speak about anything at these meetings, these so-called confidential meetings, that nothing will get done.
Yeah, that's right. Basically, Trump is trying to govern in a glass house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he could become extremely paranoid. But again, I think President Trump's training in life as a business leader in Las Vegas, probably the most corrupt mafia-run cities in the world, Atlantic City, New York City, these are all deep state kind of cities. He has learned through the years how to navigate. And what always amazes me that after all these business dealings in these dark places, he is pretty squeaky clean. They only found one locker room talk about President Trump in the 15 years history. I mean, that's an extraordinary record in my opinion. Most business people on high levels like that have all sorts of skeletons in their closet, but they cannot find anything on Donald Trump. To me, this is extraordinary. This should be headlines. How squeaky clean Donald Trump is on a lot of these issues.
Fighting a very tremendous fight, and he needs support. And I guess that support really has to come from a spiritual aspect. I remember in Pak Bo-hee's autobiography, he describes the meeting where Trudeau's father met with Nixon in the White House. And at that time, President Nixon was fighting a subpoena from the Congress over some tapes of conversations that occurred in the Oval Office. And according to Pak Bo-hee's Bo-hee Pak's autobiography, according to Bo-hee Pak, father said to Nixon, call a press conference in the Rose Garden. Have all the press there. Then bring the tapes out and put them on a table. And then, in front of all the press, set fire to the tapes. That was
that's extreme.
according to Bo-hee Pak. Yes, according to Bo-hee Pak, that was the conversation there. Father wanted very much for Nixon to stay in office, because he saw Nixon as a strong anti-communist leader. Although, Nixon did negotiate the end of the U.S. involvement in Vietnam, which was, of course, a catastrophe. But Father saw him as a strong anti-communist leader, and for that moment, because he was playing that role in the Providence, Father wanted very much for him to remain in office for the remainder of his second term then. And he wanted Nixon to do what was necessary to accomplish that, it seems, if that Bo-hee Pak's conversation is accurate. And certainly I think Trump will also have to resort to some very strong measures right now to fight these people who are trying every possible way to delegitimize him, delegitimize his election, and impeach him. It's amazing that just Nixon was in his second term when Watergate occurred, and Woodward, the reporter who was one of the reporters who was instrumental in bringing Watergate about as a Washington Post reporter, has said that this current situation does not measure up to Watergate. We're not there yet. But people are just not just in the second term, but in the first term. Here it is only May.
4 months.
4 months, and people are trying to create a movement towards impeachment. It just shows how hard it is, how unwilling they are to accept that the American people went against the will of the political elite and elected a man that the political elite not only did not approve of, but actually detests from the bottom of their hearts. But this is the president that America chose. And I hope that America can continue to support him. As Jamie Dimon, let's go to this Jamie Dimon article.
Well, he really needs to hit the road and speak to the American people. The king has said this repeatedly. He should get out of Washington and don't talk to the elite media, but talk to the American people. And then he can have a full press conference every time he speaks at a public gathering. That's like a press conference. He gets to speak his mind, his view, and the American people can rally around him. I think he needs to maybe go on a tour right about now.
Jamie Dimon said Jamie Dimon told a hostile crowd of shareholders Tuesday morning that he supports President Donald Trump out of a sense of patriotic duty. He is the President of the United States. He is the pilot flying the airplane. I'd try to help any president of the U.S. because I'm a patriot. That does not mean I agree with every policy he is trying to implement, the chairman and chief executive of J.P. Morgan Chase said at the bank's annual meeting Tuesday in Wilmington, Delaware. Dimon has compared the president to an airplane pilot in the past. When you get on the airplane, you better be rooting for the success of the pilot, Dimon said in a town hall event hosted by Yahoo Finance in April. During the question and answer portion of the annual meeting, a number of shareholders called on Dimon to publicly disavow Trump and his policies, particularly Trump's immigration stance. Dimon listened to several speeches from the shareholders before he responded. Dimon said that he agreed with Trump's plans to reform the corporate tax system. Our corporate tax system is driving capital and brains overseas, and excessive regulation is reducing growth and business formation, particularly for small businesses, he said. The chief executive also commented on bank regulation, saying that some of the rules put in place after the financial crisis went too far and should be pulled back. Quote, we are not looking to throw out the entirety of Dodd-Frank or other rules. It is, however, appropriate to open up the rule book in the light of day and rework the rules and regulations that don't work well or are unnecessary, Dimon said. So this is the thing, that there are certain things that Trump needs to do, and people recognize that need to be done, such as lowering the corporate tax rate, which is extremely high in comparison to other countries around the world, especially developed countries, and is in fact giving an incentive for companies to relocate outside the United States. And that is one of the things that was really hitting the middle class in America. And as Jamie Dimon says, that is something that all Americans should be able to get behind. And here we had that story that the GDP is predicted now by the Atlanta Fed to grow 4% in the second quarter, I think it was said.
It's extraordinary.
But there's Comey, but there's Russia, but yes, I know we're all getting rich, we're all getting better, the economy's getting better, but the Comey, Russia, impeach. So people are just because the left cannot stand the fact that Trump is in the White House, that he is setting foot on those hallowed Oval Office floor where Obama was, Saint Obama was. They cannot stand that. And so they're just going bonkers all else. But if Clinton was right, that it's the economy stupid, well, it's the economy stupid, and the economy's doing great. So we'll have to see if, the American people, I guess, will have to give the Democrats another reality check next year in November.
Yeah, hopefully so. I think this really smells like, everybody, liberal elite in media were probably all protesters back in the Vietnam era. They're all wearing suits and ties now. Their politics are extremely, left and nostalgic kind of way. The Vietnam protests that went on, sweeping the nation, and they were all protesters.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they see this as a way to relive their childhood
Mm-hmm.
and to stir this movement nationally to
Mm-hmm.
wake up the sleeping giant, to protest, to get out and scream and shout and burn things and turn cars up and shoot back at police and all this kind of stuff. But I think the American people are not stupid. I think they will see this kind of extreme and say, no, this does not represent America.
To do a good job of communicating
Yeah,
to those
the silent
to
majority.
the silent
yeah.
majority. Yes, I just wanted to, before we go off, I just wanted to touch on this article that I mentioned. That this is a Reuters article. Atlanta Fed raises U.S. second quarter GDP growth view above 4%. The U.S. economy is forecast to expand at a 4.1% annualized pace in the second quarter, following the release of April figures on housing starts and industrial output. The Atlanta Federal Reserve's GDP Now forecast model showed on Tuesday. Domestic factory production increased 1% last month, for the biggest monthly gain in over 3 years, but housing starts unexpectedly fell. 2.6% government data showed on Tuesday. The latest second quarter gross domestic product estimate was faster than the 3.6% reading calculated on May 12th, the Atlanta Fed said on its website.
Don't you know that's all because of Obama?
Oh, yeah. All right, let's take a break, and we'll be back in just a minute with more news from a Tony Cook perspective.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Help us to remember when we were only children hoping for a friend. Won't you look around? These are the lives that the world has forgotten, waiting for doors of our hearts and our homes to open. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these, when we love the least of these, if not us, who will be like Jesus to the least of these? If not us, tell me who will be like Jesus to the least of these. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love. Little hands, shoeless feet, lonely eyes looking back at me. Will we leave behind the innocent to grieve? On their own, on the run, when their lives have only begun. These could be our daughters and our sons.
back to the King's Report for Wednesday, May 17th, 2017. We're in the 8th year of Chungi, 4th month and 22nd day by the heavenly calendar. And we're continuing to go through the news from a Chungi perspective. And I wanted to move away from the Comey thing for a minute and see what else President Trump is doing. We might come back to Comey later on, I don't know. But one thing that he did yesterday was he met with the president of Turkey and asked for the release of a jailed Christian pastor. That's important, I think, because I think this is another thing that neither Obama or President Hillary Clinton, might have been Hillary Clinton, would have done in this case. President Trump, this is the Fox News report, President Trump pressed for the return of a jailed American pastor Tuesday during his face-to-face meeting with Turkey's President Erdogan, according to the White House. The White House said Trump raised the incarceration of Pastor Andrew Brunson and asked that the Turkish government expeditiously return him to the United States. A source briefed on the discussions told Fox News both Trump and Vice President Pence separately pressed Erdogan for the pastor's release. Brunson has been behind bars in Turkey since October on what he claims are false charges. Brunson's family and supporters have asked the Trump administration and the president specifically to take up the cause and fight for his release. Christian leader Dr. James Dobson said in a statement he commended Trump and Pence for using their power for good. President Trump and Vice President Pence have yet again demonstrated that they are defenders of the church, focused intently upon religious liberty here, but also on religious liberty abroad, he said. Of the countless issues facing our world, it's clear that to this White House, the well-being of any individual American rests at the top of the list of priorities, and especially when that American is a prisoner of conscience. On Monday, the American Center for Law and Justice, which is advocating for the family, said it had submitted a formal written statement to the United Nations Human Rights Council on Brunson's release. Isn't that headed by Saudi Arabia now, the United Nations Human Rights Council? In a written statement late March, Brunson also said the State Department should impose sanctions on Turkey. Will the Turkish government face no consequence for stubbornly continuing to hold an American citizen as a political prisoner? He asked. He said, I appeal to President Trump, please help me. Let the Turkish government know that you will not cooperate with them in any way until they release me. Please do not leave me here in prison. Since then, the charges against Brunson have grown to accusations of terrorism, though there is little, if any, evidence to support those claims. While Brunson's case has made headlines because he's a U.S. citizen, the circumstances of his detention are common in Turkey. According to the Slate.com, nearly 50,000 people have been arrested since an attempted July coup. Besides asking for the pastor's release, Trump told Turkey's controversial leader it was a great honor to welcome him to the White House. Trump offered compassion and support for the horrible terrorist attacks against the Turkish people and vowed that the relationship we have with Turkey is going to be unbeatable. Of course, before I go, one of the issues, I'm sure they must have talked about it, although I don't see it mentioned here, is U.S. Has provided some support for the Kurdish fighters in Syria. And Turkey regards the Kurdish fighters as a kind of a domestic or a terrorist organization that threatens their administration, their sovereignty. And so that's been a sensitive issue.
Also, Turkey, they support Syria, correct? The government of Syria?
I'll have to check on that.
Yeah. Sure.
Turkey is more of a moderate Muslim nation, and in the past I know they have broken with the other Arab nations, Muslim nations, in supporting Israel to some extent, kind of like a bit like Jordan, but more radical certainly than Jordan. Erdogan returned his praise and congratulated Trump twice on his November White House win, and said his victory has led to the awakening of a new set of aspirations and expectations in our region. But despite the polite words, the meeting was not without tensions. The Turkish government has been riled by a Trump administration decision to arm Syrian Kurdish fighters in the fight against Islamic State terrorists, part of an operation to retake the capital of Raqqa, the Kurdish capital of Raqqa. Tuesday's meeting between the two heads of state also comes as the White House scrambles to respond to a report that Trump shared classified information with top Russian officials about an Islamic State terror threat. The White House has defended Trump's discussions as wholly appropriate. The U.S. is relying on regional allies like Turkey for intelligence sharing and military assistance as it crafts a Syria policy, particularly as Iran and Russia work to bolster Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's government. Trump launched a cruise missiles, we know about that, but the president hasn't outlined a strategy to quell the 6-year civil war or usher Assad out of power, which the administration says will be needed to stabilize the Arab country. Tension was expected already for the Erdogan talks after the U.S. announced last week that it would arm Kurdish Syrian militants to help them fight ISIS. Turkey has been pressuring the U.S. to drop support for the militants and doesn't want them spearheading an operation to retake ISIS' self-declared capital of Raqqa. Turkey believes the Kurds in Syria are linked to a Turkish Kurdish group known as the PKK, which the U.S., the European Union, and Turkey all consider a terrorist organization. The U.S. sees the Syrian Kurds as their best battlefield partner on the ground in northern Syria. Last month, the Turkish military bombed Kurdish forces in Syria and Iraq, in one case with American forces only about 6 miles away. Erdogan's government also has insisted it may attack Syria's Syrian Kurdish fighters again. Trump has gone out of his way to foster a good relationship with Erdogan. After a national referendum last month that strengthened Erdogan's presidential powers, European leaders and rights advocates criticized Turkey for moving closer towards autocratic rule. Trump congratulated Erdogan. So that was another thing that, so there was something going on in Washington yesterday other than Comey, and that was it, that Trump was meeting with this very important ally because it is a NATO ally, actually. Turkey is a NATO ally. It's interesting how Turkey got to be a NATO ally. It's because they're on the southern flank of what was in the Soviet Union. They needed that. But it's always Turkey's position in the NATO alliance has been interesting because they're also sworn enemies with Greece, of course, which is also a NATO ally. And so that's always been a lot of drama there. Talk about drama. So Trump is continuing his work to try and bring peace to Middle East, and certainly moving the question of whether to move the embassy to Jerusalem is also a part of that, because the Arabs are very much, Arab nations are very much opposed to that, and Palestinians are very much opposed to that. Jerusalem, if you've been there, is a very complicated city. Everybody wants it. Of course, it's Christians, Jews, and Islam all claim it as a holy city. And so it's been the target of much fighting through the centuries, and it still continues to be so today. But if Trump is able to move the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem, that would certainly be an important step in showing the U.S. Complete support for Israel in the region.
I think the story, the untold story, is the persecution of Christians throughout the Middle East.
Yeah.
And I think Trump's statement to the president of Turkey to release a Christian minister is a step in bringing light to that very dark story, where hundreds of thousands of Christians have been murdered strictly because of their religious faith throughout the Middle East.
That's right. And this certainly would not have happened in a Democratic administration, where you have not only the president but also the vice president pressuring a foreign leader to release a Christian pastor. Of course, the fact that he's an American is one thing, but the fact that he's a Christian is even more important here. The Breitbart also has an article on this, the same meeting between Trump and the president of Turkey. Let me just read a few paragraphs of that. Turkish President Erdogan praised Donald Trump during the visit to the White House on Tuesday, promising to assist the United States in fighting terrorists in the Middle East. Erdogan said via a translator that Trump's election led to the awakening of a new set of aspirations and expectations and hopes in the Middle East, particularly regarding the ongoing fight against terrorism. He also warmly praised the legendary triumph that Trump had experienced as President of the United States. Trump praised Turkey for serving as a pillar in the Cold War against communism and would offer similar assistance in fight against ISIS. Quote, today we face a new enemy in the fight against terrorism, and again we seek to face this threat together, unquote, Trump said, specifically citing terror groups like ISIS and the PKK, PKK being the Kurdish terrorist group inside Turkey. Trump said that the United States would deliver military equipment to Turkey to help them combat the terrorist threat. Erdogan confirmed that he would work with Trump and the rest of the world to combat radical terrorism. There's no place for the terrorist organizations in the future of our region, he said, citing violence in Iraq, Yemen, and Libya. Trump dismissed questions from reporters questioning his decision to reveal intelligence on ISIS to Russian diplomats during a meeting at the Oval Office. We had a very successful meeting with the foreign minister of Russia, Trump replied. Our fight is against ISIS. Yeah, it is it's very significant, I think, that Erdogan is saying that Trump gives new hope to the Middle East. Look at what was happening under Obama, where actually he was siding with the terrorist organizations, siding with Islam, and not doing very much to fight that. I'm looking at. I keep looking at President Trump's Twitter account, hoping that something. But I guess he's still. I noticed that he doesn't really publish anything for another. Yesterday's tweets were 22, 23, and 23 hours. So maybe we have to wait an hour or so more before he starts tweeting this morning. Yes, it would be interesting if he starts tweeting it during our broadcast. Yeah.
Hour of tweet.
The hour of tweet. Okay, let's take a break now, and we'll be back in a minute or so with more news from a Cheongguk perspective.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, May 17th, 2017. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second King of Cheongguk, Hyungjin Moon, who will be back tomorrow morning. And during the break, Greg asked me, is anything happening in South Korea? And so I looked it up, and sure enough, WorldTribune.com has a good article on what's happening in South Korea. New South Korean leader eager for summitry despite escalating U.S.-North Korean tensions. So let's take a look at what's happening in South Korea. Leftist South Korean President Moon Jae-in said he would seek to engage with North Korea despite Kim Jong-un's regime's continued ballistic missile tests and Pyongyang's rising dispute with the United States. Meanwhile, the U.S. Naval Strike Group led by the USS Carl Vinson is staying near the Korean Peninsula on an open-ended mission, a South Korean defense official said on May 16th, according to Yonhap. Joint drills between South Korea and the U.S. involving the Vinson are underway, Commander Chang-wook A spokesman for the South Korean Navy told reporters, adding, "The end date has not yet been set." A South Korean official said the government plans to review how to prepare for an inter-Korean summit anniversary event slated for June after taking into account its ties with North Korea and Pyongyang's nuclear issue, Yonhap reported on May 16th. Quote, "Details will be decided after the government reviews them by taking into account various factors such as inter-Korean policy and North Korea's nuclear problems," unquote, the official said. Of course, North Korea would say, "Problems? What problems? Our only problem is how to miniaturize that thing so that we could fit it better into a missile."
And hit Hawaii.
And hit Hawaii or Washington, the White House. North Korea's top envoy to China, Ji Jang-ryong, on May 15th, called on South Korea's new government to respect and fully implement inter-Korean agreements on reconciliation and cooperation. South Korea's unification ministry responded that it is not logical for North Korea to call for the South to honor inter-Korean agreements on cooperation while testing a new ballistic missile. The reason why the inter-Korean agreements have not been fully carried out is that North Korea has conducted nuclear and missile provocations, a unification ministry official said. Stars and Stripes reported that the USS Vincent's Asia patrol was extended about a month amid a series of North Korean missile launches and speculation that the communist state could soon conduct a nuclear test. The Vincent is scheduled to be replaced by the USS Ronald Reagan, an aircraft carrier which has its home port in Japan and reportedly departed for routine patrol in the Asia-Pacific region after months of regular maintenance. The Reagan successfully completed sea trials last week and embarked on its regularly scheduled patrol along with accompanying warships, according to the Stars and Stripes. The Reagan is based in Yokosuka, near Tokyo, and so it's, I guess, it has left port now. It's departed for routine patrol, so it's left port now for routine patrol, it says, but I guess they'll be patrolling routinely somewhere in the vicinity of the Korean Peninsula, it sounds like. But Carl Vinson is staying there for about a month, at least. The Stars and Stripes says, and the South Koreans are saying that the end date of the naval drills with the United States had not been set. So that's what's going on in South Korea. Any comment on that?
It just seems that the president of South Korea needs to make a decision on whether he's going to continue to show this kind of military strength and unity with America. And if he actually decides against that, then that will not be good news for the future of that country in terms of their going further in a direction toward China and away from the United States. This is it's going to be a big litmus test what his policy is going to be in terms of how to deal with the United States military presence.
I think he kind of faces trying to walk a tightrope between public opinion and what he wants to do. Mm-hmm. Because Roh Moo-hyun and Kim Dae-jung wanted very much to get close to North Korea. But the South Korean public opinion, even though they voted for him, they did so because they, A, don't think of North Korea as a threat, and B, even if North Korea is a threat, they're not a threat to South Korea. They're only a threat to Japan and the U.S. and so why should we care about that type of feeling? That surely North Korea will not attack fellow Koreans.
That's the general feeling.
That's a common feeling in South Korea, especially among younger generations. I think people who don't remember that North Korea did in fact attack fellow Koreans in 1950 and fought a very brutal war that killed many civilians for about 3 years, from 50 to 53.
Propaganda all about attacking South Korea? North Korea's propaganda?
Yeah, about turning Seoul into a sea of fire, that kind of thing. But people don't pay attention to that.
They don't think it's real.
They don't think it's real, no. They just say, that's just them, causing problems again. And, they've heard it so often now that it doesn't even resonate. It's like white noise, actually. But of course, so on the one hand, Moon Jae-in wants to open communications and wants to open economic relations with North Korea ideologically, because many of his administration actually are what's called a Chusapa, or the which is short for the Juche ideology faction, and they actually believe that that Juche ideology is the way for South Korea to go. Juche ideology being the sort of the version of communism introduced by Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-un's grandfather. So now these people, they've been in the student movement and in the radical left movement, and they've been sort of off the political map for many, many years. But now they're in the actual administration of South Korea. And these people believe that South Korea would do better to be to get rid of the Americans and to follow Juche ideology, as outrageous as that may seem, to follow ideology and to implement a Juche ideology in South Korea.
Now, from a providential perspective, what's your take on, given the fact that the Han mother has separated from father, the Korean people are no longer the chosen people in the providence right now. The second king and Cain and Abel have moved to the United States. Is it, would you say it's almost inevitable that there needs to be some kind of harsh judgment upon Korea?
Well, God will have to answer that question, and unfortunately, we don't have the electronic means to communicate with Him. But it would seem logical that looking at the way God has performed in the past, especially after Jesus' crucifixion, that that would seem to be what is coming at some point in some point in time in some form. And I would say that it's up to God. It's His, it's way above our pay grade. It's up to Him to decide when and where and how that kind of judgment takes place. Certainly South Korea set the condition of having accepted the returning Messiah, the Lord of the Second Advent, at some level. They did. But they rejected His successor. And rejecting His successor and His inheritor is the same as rejecting True Father Himself. Yes, that kind of so now, as long as the Father's Messiah's providential protection was on Korea, Korea was able to continue to prosper and grow from what in 1950s was a basket case economy that many people thought would never amount to anything. Think of Somalia today or countries like that. That's where Korea was back in the 1950s. And if you can imagine Somalia today growing into a country that has a lion's share of the world's cell phone market, for example, the shipping market or the steel market, and is one of the top 20 richest countries in the world. If you were to say that about Somalia today, people would say, "No, you're crazy." I'm sorry about Somalia. If you're from Somalia, I apologize. I'm just trying to use that. I have to use some countries as an example. But Korea in the early 1950s, even through the 1950s, was one of the poorest countries in the world. So how is it that they were able to grow in this point, 60 years later? It's because of the Messiah. It's because that was the place where the Messiah came and where He conducted His providence. And because they set the condition of accepting Him at some level. And if they rejected Him, and if they forced His successor and inheritor to leave the country and to conduct His providence elsewhere, then it would stand to reason that protection that they have received for the past 60 years would also vanish, and that they're no longer enjoying the benefits of God's hedge of protection. So, and now they have a president who seems to illustrate that fact. They've made this choice. The people of South Korea made this choice to elect a president who is not going to, who does not believe that South Korea belongs under the U.S. Nuclear umbrella, does not believe that South Korea needs an alliance with the United States. He's not voicing that now.
Right.
Because if he were to do that, it would have serious political implications in South Korea. Because South Koreans also think, well, no matter what happens, America will always protect us. Because we are strategically vital to them. It's not our interests, but their interests that they are protecting. So it's not because they're nice people. It's because we are vital, essential to the United States' strategic interests. That they are always going to protect us, no matter what, no matter what. This is what they believe. That's another naive view. That's a very naive view. So Moon Jae-in will, I think, as much as possible, start to move towards North Korea, but in increments. But eventually we will see it, and we will see South Korea removing itself from God's protection, from the United States' protection, and certainly they themselves will bring a judgment upon themselves. And that, I think, is what the members in our sanctuary brothers and sisters in South Korea are fighting against. And I hope that they will be successful, but they're certainly fighting a big tidal wave. And that is my concern there. All right, we'll take another break and come back with more news from a Cheonryu Group perspective.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Good morning, Wednesday, the King's Report for Wednesday, May 17th, 2017, 8th month of Cheongi, 4th month and 22nd day by the heavenly calendar. And we're continuing to go through the news from a Cheonryu Group perspective. And just now, actually, hot off the press, or of course, things are not hot when they come off the press these days, but opinion, the Comey memo offers zero evidence to impeach Trump. This is an article that was posted just a half an hour ago on The Hill. Publication that specializes on congressional activities. And it says, with the scandal du jour of the Comey memo, President Donald Trump's trip to Saudi Arabia looks less like a diplomatic flight as fleeing the jurisdiction. For the first time, the Comey memo pushes the litany of controversies surrounding Trump into the scope of the United States Criminal Code. However, if this is food for obstruction of justice, it is still an awfully thin soup. Some commentators seem to be alleging criminal conduct in office or calling for impeachment before Trump completed the words of his inaugural oath of office. Yes, they were, yes. Not surprisingly, within minutes of the New York Times report, the response was a chorus of breathless gotcha announcements. But this memo is neither the Pentagon Papers nor the Watergate tapes. Indeed, it raises as many questions for Comey as it does Trump in terms of alleged underlying conduct. A good place to start would be the federal law, specifically 18 U.S.C. 1503. The criminal code demands more than what Comey reportedly describes in his memo. There are dozens of different variations of obstruction charges, ranging from threatening witnesses to influencing jurors. None would fit this case. That leaves the omnibus provision on attempts to interfere with the due administration of justice. However, that still leaves the need to show that the effort was to influence corruptly, when Trump could say that he did little but express concern for a longtime associate. The term corruptly, quote, corruptly, unquote, is actually defined differently under the various obstruction provisions, but it often involves a showing that someone acted with the intent to secure an unlawful benefit for oneself or another. Encouraging leniency or advocating for an associate is improper, but not necessarily seeking an unlawful benefit for him. Then there is the question of corruptly influencing what? There is no indication of a grand jury proceeding at the time of the Valentine's Day meeting between Trump and Comey. Obstruction cases generally are built around judicial proceedings, not Oval Office meetings. Of course, that does not change the fact that the question by Trump was wildly inappropriate, assuming that Comey's memo is accurate. Yet it also raises questions of Comey's judgment. The account suggests that Comey was so concerned about the conversation that he wrote a memorandum for record, but that would suggest that Comey thought the president was trying to influence the investigation, but then said nothing to the Justice Department or to his investigation team. The report says that while Comey may have told a couple of colleagues at the FBI, he did not tell the investigation team, so the details of the conversation would not affect the investigation. Why? If he thought the president was trying to derail the investigation, that would seem relevant to the scope of the investigation. It is like a bank president seeking to close a fraud investigation, but the contact in the FBI decided not to tell the bank investigators. One explanation would be that Comey did not view Trump as a potential target of the Flynn investigation and thus did not view the uncomfortable meeting as relevant to the investigation team. And Trump has maintained that Comey told him 3 times that he was not a target. However, that would make the case even weaker for allegations that Trump was trying to protect himself or his inner circle by seeking closure for Flynn. It is highly concerning that Trump has described how Comey actively campaigned to keep his job during this period. As usual, Trump has created the most problematic record for judging his own actions. If Comey was pleading for his job as suggested by Trump, the impropriety of the alleged statement in the Oval Office would be exponentially increased. Trump categorically denies that the statement was ever made. That alone could support an immediate demand for any and all tapes in the possession of Trump, and he would be required to turn them over. There is a separate question of whether this type of alleged obstruction could be the basis for impeachment. As someone who has been down that long impeachment road before, I would again advocate caution. Who's writing this? This is a contributor. Who's writing this? Jonathan Turley. Okay. As someone who has been down that long impeachment road before, I would again advocate caution. Last night, respected former presidential advisor David Gergen said that, with the Comey memo, we are now in impeachment territory. If so, we have 1 foot on the shore and 1 foot in a raging surf. Before we start an impeachment proceeding, we need to be on terra firma. It requires more than uncomfortable meetings or ill-considered disclosures. It is certainly true that an impeachable offense does not have to be a prosecutable crime, despite the standard of treason, bribery, or high crimes and misdemeanors. Professors like Lawrence Tribe and others have called for impeachment even before this latest allegation. It is also true that Richard Nixon was facing impeachment allegations that included efforts to influence or obstruct the investigation of his campaign. However, Nixon's impeachment involved a host of clear criminal acts, from slush funds to burglaries. There is no compelling evidence of an actual crime at the heart of the Russian investigation. Flynn is facing allegations of basic reporting or disclosure violations under the Foreign Agents Registration Act, which is rarely actually prosecuted. Indeed, there have been only 7 prosecutions under that act since 1966, when the law was revised. The investigation of Flynn has not produced any reported evidence implicating Trump. A FARA, that's the Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA violation is a relatively minor federal violation for a president if that is the scope of the FBI investigation. Obviously, if there is some undisclosed major crime implicating the president, the seriousness of the alleged statement would grow in the same proportion. However, Trump has insisted that he was told repeatedly by Comey that he was not under investigation. So this article continues for a few more paragraphs, but so this is Jonathan Turley speaking. He's at the professor at George Washington University. And he testified during the Clinton impeachment and served as lead defense counsel in the last impeachment trial in the United States Senate for Judge Thomas Porteous. This is a new article that's come out that's saying that we're very, very far from impeachment, even though, of course, the media and the Democrats and the establishment and the deep state bureaucrats are all saying, gotcha, now we have him. But we're still very far from that. And it just illustrates once more how overeager people are, the anti-Trumpers are, to get rid of the president that was duly elected and legally elected in November, because they can't stand the fact that someone got in that doesn't play by their rules. I can see how Turley points out that Trump is making things difficult for himself by some of his statements, because if Comey was trying to keep his job, and President said, well, so the implication would be, you want to keep your job? Well, then let's talk about Flynn. Right. So that would be a quid pro quo, which would fall under the scope of corruption, of corruptly asking for leniency on Flynn. But that was not the case. But President Trump is kind of by saying that Comey was trying to keep his job, that Comey by saying that he actually makes things difficult for himself, and I wonder if he's aware of that. But that is that piece in the Hill this morning. CNN is asking Trump versus Comey, who will America trust? Well, I guess CNN has their answer, doesn't it? But we think probably America will trust Trump over Comey, I suspect.
It's a rising tension that's happening. There's been talk about a new civil war beginning to take place in America between the political parties and the attack on Judeo-Christian values versus a more relativism that's happening. And I think if impeachment proceedings are actually gaining ground, and I think this will be the seed for potential major national conflict in small towns across the country. We'll have to see how it kind of unfolds, but this is certainly concerning because Trump is mandated by God, certainly with the support of Cain and Abel and the second king, to really root out corruption and to bring in sovereignty back to America, constitutional rights, and to really lay the foundation for the Chung-Il-Guk Constitution. That's really what this is all about. It's laying the groundwork for acceptance of the Chung-Il-Guk Constitution.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So sometimes things have to get pretty bad before they get better. And this is another familiar theme the king has been talking about, that we're entering the time of the trib. And, through tribulation, people are brought to their knees in repentance and being brought back to God.
Yeah, I think all this will work out for the better.
Yeah.
All this will work out. And I don't know what's going to happen. Trump may get impeached. I don't know. If it does, like you say, I think there will be. Actually, I think a civil war has already been going on since last year, since the presidential election. And certainly, if Trump is either assassinated or impeached or removed from office because he's unfit to hold office, which other people are suggesting, saying, well, if we can't impeach him, let's say that he's crazy and unfit to hold office. And so there are various ways that they're trying to remove Trump from office. and if that happens, then certainly the civil war will become more violent. Will be more violent.
Yeah.
That would be an unfortunate thing, but even then, I think that it will all work to bring about Chanuguk in a situation where we do actually implement the Chanuguk Constitution in this country.
And we have to build up peace police and peace
Yes.
militia
Yeah.
to stop the advancement of the Archangel
Yeah.
in that situation.
Yeah.
So I think, the king has been almost, obsessed, focused on building our own ability to defend ourselves, defend our family. There might be a reason why God is inspiring him to do so. We need to
Yes.
prepare ourselves. We need to get ourselves ready. If the resistance of the extreme left is going to rise up and take a stronghold in this country, then we have to counterbalance that. from God's
Resist.
side. Yeah.
We have to resist.
Yeah.
Resist the resistance.
The
Actually,
silent majority can't be silent anymore.
Trump is resisting, and the left is resisting his resistance, and we may have to resist their resistance
Right.
of the resistance.
Right.
It's going to get very complicated. We'll be back in a minute or so with more news from a Chanukuk perspective after this break.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, May 17th, 2017, 8th year of Cheongi, 4th month, 22nd day by the heavenly calendar. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyungjin Moon. I will be back tomorrow with the King's Report. So the big story today is, the New York Times, a story about the Comey memo and the chorus of gotchas from anti-Trumpers and never-Trumpers and et cetera. And also these smaller chorus of people trying to defend Trump or trying to work with the president, and also the chorus of good news, such as Trump's meeting with the Turkish president yesterday, and the Atlanta Fed's report that the GDP is likely to rise by 4% during the second quarter, which for an economy as the size of America, is 4% is quite a lot.
Huge.
It's quite good. So we have so we are always pulled towards that. But and then so we're looking for ways not to focus too much on the New York Times report, because let's see how that plays out. I want to go back to the story that began last Saturday with this ransomware thing, where somebody, and apparently it looks like North Korea, hatched this attack against computers worldwide, and I think at one point something like 90 countries were affected. Russia was hit pretty hard. The UK, health system, national health system was hit. A lot of hospitals had to turn away patients because they couldn't bring up the patient's electronic files because their computers were hacked by this. And China was also hit pretty hard. The United States, not so much. Probably because I think, and I've noticed this in the past as well, when you have these big sort of worldwide virus attacks, the United States gets attacked less than other countries. Some people may see a conspiracy there. I see more of the fact that computer users in the United States are more likely to be using, real software, not the pirated stuff. You know, you can get pirated copies of Microsoft software. I've heard that is possible in many countries, in certain East Asian countries. I've heard that this is possible. And also, I think many of our computers are set to update these patches when Microsoft puts them out. So, and what happens, as I mentioned yesterday, I think, is that the NSA discovered some years ago, or some time ago, discovered a vulnerability in the Microsoft operating system, not just Windows 10, but the earlier systems as well. And instead of telling Microsoft about it, they use this, and they use this as a way to spy on people's computers themselves. They kept it secret. Problem is that somebody leaked their NSA's tool based on that vulnerability onto the internet. And then, so it became available to a much wider audience. And then somebody, we think North Korea, more experts think North Korea, got that off the internet and then developed a what's called a ransomware that goes into people's computers and encrypts the files so that they cannot read them, and demands initially $300 for unencrypting the files.
Oh, that's the ransom part.
That's the ransom
I
part,
see.
yeah.
So $300 was the key.
Right. And if you didn't pay it, then it went up 500, 600, so forth. Now, actually, in the meantime, after this NSA tool was released on the internet, then the NSA went to Microsoft and said, oh, by the way, this thing is out there and you guys need to do something about it. And Microsoft did. Back in March. They released a patch that updated computers so that they would not be affected by this vulnerability. They closed the vulnerability. And once a month or so, I get really frustrated when about 30 seconds before we have to go on air in the morning, my computer wants to update. You have to restart your computer. What? But that happens, I think, around the 10th of every month, where Microsoft sets, or at least my computer, that it's the 10th of every month or thereabouts, where there's these automatically these patches come in, and it happens once a month. Apparently, when it happened last March, my computer was updated so that the vulnerability in my Microsoft operating system was closed, and so that appears to be reason for my computer not being affected by this. Also, the fact that this ransomware was spread by email, by an email link, I guess, or an attachment or link or something like that, and I never click on a attachment or link that is coming from someone that I don't know. If you're sending me something, I'll open it. Now, you may be sending me something from North Korea. I don't know. You may have been infected. Then I'm vulnerable. But it's certainly a wise policy not to. If someone sends me a link and I don't know them, or even sometimes if I do know them, or haven't heard from them in a long time, I'll write back and said, I appreciate the link, but what's it about? And it'll turn out sometimes that their email account was hacked and the link was fake.
You can usually tell in the body of the email if it sounds like that person or not.
Well, usually, but not always, though.
Not always.
Not always, though. So sometimes, it's a very short message
Yeah.
because these people that are, these people are pretty smart. These crooks are pretty smart, and they will write a message. Oh, I thought you might be interested in this, something like that.
So have they tracked the money trail? All these $300 payments.
Well,
back
no,
to
because
North Korea, or-
it's bitcoins.
oh, it's Bitcoin.
It's
so,
bitcoins. You have to pay in bitcoins, and they even the ransomware message even includes an explanation of what bitcoins are and where you can buy them and everything like that.
It was put out by Bitcoin.
Because if I had to pay somebody $300 in bitcoins, I wouldn't know where to go to buy
would
bitcoins. I've never dealt with bitcoins. I really haven't paid too much attention with that whole thing.
Right.
Maybe I should. Maybe this is God. Maybe this is
It's
God.
an advertising by Bitcoin.
Maybe this is God telling us to look into bitcoins. I don't know. But anyway, so they have not. But they did. What they did though is they analyzed the code, and they found that the code bore similarities to previous attacks that were eventually linked to North Korea,
I see.
such as the time when Sony Pictures put out a movie called The Interview that was showed Kim Jong-un in a rather unfavorable light. It was a kind of a
Parody of sorts.
kind of a Hollywood's version of SNL, Saturday Night Live on Kim Jong-un, and North Korea didn't like it, and so they hacked Sony's computer systems and forced Sony to, I guess, not to release it or something, or to take it down or something like that. And that code and this code have some similarities. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can say, okay, they did this, and so therefore they must have done this, because once that, because other people also saw that code, not North Korea, but other hackers could have seen that code, and they could have said, oh, this is a good thing. Let me use it now for this purpose.
That's practical.
Yeah. So it doesn't necessarily, it's not exactly a smoking gun. And the article that we read yesterday said that it's going to take weeks or months to actually finally figure out where did this ransomware come from.
So are these computers still out of service for the most part?
Well, those that have not paid, well, if you paid $300, then you're okay.
Really?
Yeah, until the next attack. Yeah, but and some of them may be. I don't know. Yeah, but I think that a lot of people finally did have to figure out how to pay that $300 in bitcoins. But so the thing is, but the issue here though is also there are a number of issues here. That the NSA saw the vulnerability but didn't tell Microsoft. Didn't tell Microsoft to fix it. And they actually used it for their spying purposes to spy, because it allowed them to spy on any computer that they wanted to.
They could actually go
Yeah.
into their systems.
Right. Up until March, yes. This vulnerability existed.
But nobody's talking about that.
Right. Not much. And then the second thing is the fact that the NSA tool was then leaked onto the internet. Who did that? All right. So that guy also, and this article that I'm looking at today is talking about that. Cybersecurity experts believe the hacker who leaked the potent software tool that powered last week's global ransomware attacks is an American, perhaps a disgruntled insider in the U.S. intelligence community. Such a finding would raise the stakes for halting the shadow brokers group, that's in capitals, which has bedeviled the National Security Agency with releases of its hacked, weaponized cyber exploits for months. One of those leaked NSA tools allowed extortionists to spark havoc last Friday by encrypting the hard drives of more than 200,000 computers in 150 countries, the largest such cyber attack ever to hit the globe. The attackers demanded $300,000 or more to unlock each computer. So $300 times 200,000 is what? A lot. The 6 million? I think it's more than 6 million.
600.
60 million, I think, or sorry. The NSA did not respond for a request for comment. The Shadow Brokers group first surfaced last August, claiming to have breached the NSA and stolen sophisticated cyber tools. It sought to auction off the NSA exploits but failed to find many buyers, releasing some for free. It periodically has resurfaced with statements. The last statement came at 2:16 a.m. Tuesday. A long, rambling screed that used broken syntax to make it seem as if it were written by a foreigner with poor English. But the message was filled with U.S. cultural references that experts said were likely to have come only from someone with natives' familiarity. Not that anybody else is familiar with American culture. I don't know. I think they are Americans, and I think they are inside somewhere, said David Atel, chief executive at Immunity, a Miami cyber-based cybersecurity company who formerly was a chief scientist at the NSA. Some of the idioms they use are straight up native. You have to be native to use them. Domestic culture and political references fill the 1,100-word statement, which carries the headline, "Oh Lordy, Comey Wanna Cry Edition." Comey Wanna Cry Edition. In addition to reference to James Comey, the ousted FBI director, and WannaCry ransomware that the extortionists deployed last Friday, the statement made the liberal use of idioms like BFF and a vulgar expression that Late Show host Stephen Colbert employed May 1st in talking about President Donald Trump. I always thought there had to be an insider somewhere on the chain for the shadow brokers, said John Bambanek, a threat intelligence manager at Fidelis Cybersecurity in Maryland. Bambanek said he had been struck by the simply one person's show by an insider or in a larger group, if that were the true, he or she would join a long U.S. government's most classified secrets in recent years, Bambanek said. So this is looking perhaps, so this shadow brokers group, is that the name of it? Yes, is apparently a group that is a mysterious group that is stealing national security information from the NSA and releasing it onto the internet so that potentially some countries like North Korea can exploit it. Yeah, and we don't know where that where those $300 times 200,000 went to. Following that money trail, though, is because of the nature of bitcoins. Apparently, it's very difficult to follow
much more
that.
difficult. Yeah, it doesn't go through conventional banks. So
Have you ever done a Bitcoin transaction?
no, I never have.
I'm intrigued now. I may look into that. I may look into
Cyber
that.
money.
Yes.
I think the real story is, the NSA conducting surveillance over U.S. citizens, and that's being lost in all of the story. Just as the growth of the economy is being lost with the screaming of impeachment.
Yeah, that's true. Even though this vulnerability was closed last March, I'm sure the NSA has many others to take its place. For ways to get into our computer.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, May 17th, 2017, 8th year of Chungi, 4th month, 22nd day by the heavenly calendar. I'm Tim Elder. I hope you've noticed. And I'm sitting in for Hyungjin Moon, the second king of Cheonryuk. And you know, the king always says that in Cheonryuk we need to take advantage of the highest level of technology. But he also points out that technology can be used for evil as well as good. And so we need to master that and to dominate that in Cheonryuk. And an article that I have now is talking about creating human babies from skin cells. It's in the New York Times this morning, I think. It's on their online edition dated yesterday. And it says that nearly 40 years after the world was jolted by the birth of the first test tube baby, a new revolution in reproductive technology is on the horizon, and it promises to be far more controversial than in vitro fertilization ever was. Within a decade or two, researchers say scientists will likely be able to create a human baby skin cells that have been coaxed to grow into eggs and sperm and used to create embryos to implant in a in vitro, how do you pronounce this? Gametogenesis, or IVG, let's call it IVG, is so far has been used only in mice, but stem cell biologists say it is only a matter of time before it could be used in human reproduction, opening up mind-boggling possibilities. With IVG, two men, that sounds like a much more useful, good use of this technology. It gives me an unsettled feeling because we don't know what this could lead to. Paul Knopfler, a stem cell researcher at the University of California, Davis. You can imagine one man providing both the eggs and the sperm, almost like cloning himself. You can imagine that eggs becoming so easily available would lead to designer babies, unquote. Some scientists even talk about what they call the Brad Pitt scenario, where someone retrieves a celebrity's skin cells from a hotel bed or bathtub. Or a baby might have what one law professor called multiplex parents. There are a group there that want to reproduce among themselves, said Sonia Suter, a George Washington professor who began IVG even before it had been achieved in mice. You could have two pairs who would each create an embryo and then take an egg from one embryo from the other, a baby. Three prominent academics in medicine and law sounded an alarm about the possible consequences in a paper published this year. IVG may raise the specter of embryo farming on a scale currently unimagined, which might exacerbate concerns about the devaluation of human life. Dr. Eli Y. Adachi, a medical science professor at Brown, and these other guys, wrote in the journal Science Translational Medicine. Still, how soon IVG might become a reality in human reproduction is open to debate. I wouldn't be surprised if it were 5 years. And I wouldn't be surprised if it were 25 years, said Jean Loring, a researcher at Scripps Research Institute, who, with the San Diego Zoo, hopes to use IVG to increase the population of the nearly extinct northern white rhino. See, that might be a good use for it. Dr. Loring said that when she discussed IVG with colleagues who initially said it would never be used with humans, their skepticism often melted away as the talk continued, but not everyone is convinced that IVG will ever become a regularly used process in human reproduction, even if the ethical issues are resolved. People are alive, chief executive of the New York Stem Cell Foundation, and we've often seen that the closer you get to something, the more obstacles you discover. IVG is not the first reproductive technology to challenge the basic paradigm of baby making. Back when in vitro fertilization was beginning, many people were horrified by the idea of creating babies outside the human body. And yet, IVF and related procedures have become IVF, that's in vitro fertilization, have become so commonplace that they now account for about 70,000 or almost 2% of the babies born in the United States each year. According to the latest estimate, there have been more than 6.5 million babies born worldwide through IVF and related technologies. Of course, even IVF is not universally accepted. The Catholic Church remains firm in its opposition to in vitro fertilization, in part because it too often leads to the creation of extra embryos that are frozen and discarded. IVG requires layers of complicated bioengineering. IVG, we're talking about now. IVG requires layers of complicated bioengineering. Scientists must first take adult skin cells. Other cells would work as well or better, but skin cells are the easiest to get, and reprogram them to become embryonic stem cells capable of growing into different kinds of cells. Then the same factors that occur in nature are used to guide those stem cells to become eggs or sperm. Cells taken from the woman, from women, could be made to produce sperm, the researchers say, but the sperm, lacking a Y chromosome, would produce only female babies. Last year, researchers in Japan, led by Katsuhiko Hayashi, used IVG to make viable eggs from the skin cells of adult female mice and produced embryos that were implanted into female mice who then gave birth to healthy babies. The process strikes some people as inherently repugnant. There is a yuck factor here, said Arthur Kaplan, a bioethicist at New York University. It strikes many people as intuitively yucky to have 3 parents or to make a baby without starting from an egg and sperm. But then again, it used to be that people thought blood transfusions were yucky or putting pig valves in human hearts. Whatever the social norms, there are questions about the wisdom of tinkering with basic biological processes. And there is general agreement that reproductive technology is progressing faster than consideration of the legal and ethical questions it raises. We have come to realize that scientific developments are outpacing our ability to think them through, Dr. Adachi said. It's a challenge for which we are not fully prepared. It would be good to be having the conversation before we are actually confronting the challenges. Some bioethicists take the position that while research on early stages of human life can deepen the understanding of our genetic code, tinkering with biological mechanisms that have evolved over thousands of years is inherently wrong-headed. Basic research is paramount, but it is not clear that we need new methods for creating viable embryos, said David Lemberg, a bioethicist at National University of California, attempting to apply what we learned to create a human zygote is dangerous because we have no idea what we're doing. We have no idea what the outcomes are going to be. It says, that's the article in New York Times. You know, in our community, in our church, we put paramount importance on lineage, on blood lineage. And so as I'm going through this article, I can see in some ways this can be a technology that would help people preserve lineage and to theoretically, it would seem you could have a lot of babies.
It still has to be implanted in a womb.
That's true. Okay, yes, that's true. So, all right, there is that part, yes. So you can't just go popping them out every week, can you? Yeah. Yeah. So there is.
What comes to my mind is, the King's been talking a lot the last few weeks about absolute sex and the sanctity of the union of man and woman centered on God. And all of that is lost in this technology sphere of producing babies and this kind of scientific laboratory. It's not just about creating the biology of a human being, but the discussion should be more about the quality of life and the soul and the spirit of a baby and the environment in which it's brought into the world. And it's clearly, the King, based on Father's teaching, is meant to be conceived out of this intimate relationship with God. And when you take God out of the picture, then it becomes another form of idolatry, where we worship science rather than really turning our attention to God and the mystical, magical sphere of husband and wife coming together out of this profound desire to bring life into the world, and then a child being conceived out of the union of the sexual organs centered on God, and then life coming forth from that. That's like a whole different dimension of a child's internal purpose for coming into the world versus this kind of skin cell from who knows who, and being sperm is being generated through a skin cell. It just seems very devoid of God.
Well, I want to separate. First, there's the human application to the human reproduction, and the application to the animal kingdom or to other creatures. And it did say here that it is they're trying to use it in a zoo to prevent the extinction of a certain type of a rhinoceros, and that may be one aspect, that preserving God's creation and preserving species that are on Earth today. And certainly, Father's first choice when a couple could not have children, his first choice was for them to adopt or to receive a gift child. And this was when members of the true family, when his own children sometimes could not have children, that was, he would say, okay, well, raise one of the children that you receive from one of your siblings. That happened to at least two couples that I can think of offhand within Father's own family. Then, and certainly that would be that would continue to be our first choice in our community, no matter what scientific advances or what other options the science may provide. And I don't think of an instance, even vitro fertilization, as it says, spoke about that. His focus was on having children from other couples if they could not have children of their own. But I could see that this technology might have a use in Cheongguk in terms of animals. But I'm sure this will be a discussion, ongoing discussion, that a very controversial discussion, I can imagine. There's certainly a yuck factor here. Someone mentioned the yuck factor, and there's not just a yuck, but a cringe factor in the idea that two men would be able to have a child. That is completely unprincipled, or even have a multiplex of parents, groups of parents. So it can be used. It can be used for very, very harmful ways, and as we go through the tribulation period and go through the process of eliminating evil from the world, that would certainly be some of the evil that we would have to eliminate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, a lot of adoptions now are happening to gay couples, lesbian couples.
Yes, and then some of those children are growing up and speaking out against homosexuality.
Yeah.
Carr Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Carr Firearms Group, made in the USA. Visit carr.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, May 17th, 2017, 8th year of Cheonggye, 4th month, 22nd day by the heavenly calendar. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyungjin Moon. And this segment I want to go to Greg. He has some things to say about the stem cells and Planned Parenthood. Is it a good idea that we have to fund Planned Parenthood through our taxes, Mr. Greg Knoll?
Well, I'm not sure how this ever came about, where government has decided to extort money out of taxpayers to pay for these types of special programs. Somewhere along the line, we deemed it necessary for government to get involved in all sorts of activities that are normally left in the past, in the not so distant past, used to be decided by citizens, like what types of charities we would like to contribute. For some reason, Planned Parenthood became a charity of sorts, which I believe is a 501c3 tax-exempt organization that the government felt compelled to fund at the tune of millions upon millions of dollars. We are now forced to support this so-called charitable organization that is morally reprehensible to many people, including myself. And this is brought up in the sense of stem cell research. A lot of embryonic stem cell research is now being done. And where do they get these stem cells? They get them from aborted fetuses. And so a lot of science, so-called science, is being done on these aborted babies. They're actual living human beings inside the mother's womb, which is meant to be the most safest and most sacred place for the beginning of human life, where the baby, unfortunately at this point, does not have any human rights. Those rights have been taken away, and murdering of the unborn has become commonplace to the point of, what's the total count? I think it's 50 million aborted fetuses per year in America. We say aborted fetuses, but these are actually human beings that are ripped out of the mother's womb in sometimes very gruesome ways. Whether it's gruesome or not, it's the killing of human life. And stem cell research is being done on these embryos, these babies, for the so-called advancement of trying to keep people alive forever. So the idolatry of eternal life, keeping us alive at the expense of the unborn. And I find it something that has to, where we are being forced to fund all sorts of programs now. And I think part of the churn to the tune of an incredible national debt of $20 trillion now, spiraling out of control, even choose where their money goes to. We should not be forced, we should not be mandated to support organizations that we find morally objectionable. And I think this is something that I would like to see more brought to the public light, that rather than the government deciding where my money goes,
Yes.
I would like to decide where
Yes.
my money goes.
Yes. I'm looking at Planned Parenthood's form, their Form 990, which nonprofit organizations file. This is for statement ending June 30, 2015, and they are a 501c3, as you said. That was correct. And during this year, they had total revenue of $195,663,927. $630,927. Doesn't really break down how much they get from the government.
I heard $336 million they receive.
From the government? Well, that must be separate from this then, because if they get $300 million, this is only $195 million. And so that must be somehow treated separately from this statement. That would be interesting to find out why that $300 million is not included on this statement. They have total assets, it says here, at that point, that was June 30, 2015, of $369 million, and total liabilities of $95 million for net assets of $273 million. So how much of that money came from you and me? Yeah, that is an interesting and very serious question that people should think about. This is the Planned Parenthood Foundation of America, Inc.
Yeah, there might be different divisions.
There might be different divisions, yeah. And there might be, so regionally, yes, I think actually, if you look up Planned Parenthood on GuideStar, which is where I'm looking at it now, there are a lot of Planned Parenthoods let me get back to that list. The Planned Parenthood Federation of America, Planned Parenthood of Arizona, U.S. of Southwest and Central Florida, of Illinois, of Great Plains, of Columbia Willamette, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole lot of Planned Parenthoods around the country, yeah. And they each have their own, they're incorporated separately. And so that must be how they get the $300 million, because it's kind of spread out like that. And each of these I see have income of 99 million, 29 million, 25 million, 20 million, 34 million, 18 million, et cetera, et cetera.
That's probably how the money is dispersed
that must
through
be it, yeah.
individual
Yeah.
Planned Parenthoods. But the fact of the matter is they feel entitled,
Yeah.
people who support Planned Parenthood, they feel entitled that you and I should support what
Right.
they believe in.
Right, yeah.
Why? Where does that premise come from?
Yeah.
That premise is wrong.
Mhm.
I should be able to decide where my money goes without being held at gunpoint. Basically, the IRS is holding a gun. And if you don't pay your taxes, then you will be taken away. And so I feel, that discussion needs to be more to the forefront.
Yeah. More of the government functions need to be moved to the private sector,
Yes.
and not to. And so, for
Yeah.
example, the welfare and this has been suggested that as an initial step, the government might want to give funds that otherwise would go to welfare to a lot and a broad spectrum of private organizations. So that they can compete and see who can do a better job of dispersing these and providing services to these funds. And then gradually, government revenue can be decreased and people's donations to nonprofit organizations move to try. If we can't get government to stop taking money from us, the IRS stop taking money from us now, maybe to spread the money out more, not just all to $300 million to Planned Parenthood. No, spread it out more to other organizations that say that they provide health care, because that's what Planned Parenthood says. We're just prenatal care or health care. So take them at their word. We know it's a lie, but take them at their word and give it to other organizations who also provide prenatal care and other health care services for women, whether or not they provide abortions. And then we can see who is able to survive in a free market of a competition. I think that might be a first step towards reducing the influence of Planned Parenthood, because it really has it's almost a sacred cow for the Democrats. It is a sacred cow for the Democrats. They strongly reject any idea that Planned Parenthood be defunded, and even the DNC now, Tom Perez, the head of the DNC, has said that the Democratic National Committee will not endorse any candidate that does not support abortion. Yeah. To be a Democratic candidate, you have to support abortion. This is what the head of DNC has said, to the protest of many members of the Democratic Party. But this is what he is saying. That came out a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if he's been reined in or what, but this is how important abortion is, and therefore what Planned Parenthood is to the Democratic Party. And certainly it needs to be reined in. It needs to be weakened.
It needs to be exposed.
It needs to be exposed.
The percentage of real healthcare services is minuscule. 1 to 2% of their overall budget goes to these
people
other.
Have called up, certain say, I heard you provide prenatal care. I want some prenatal care, and they say, what? Where did you get that idea?
Right.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about abortion?
Have you ever thought about abortion?
Yeah, 27% goes toward abortions.
Yes.
So it's a huge, it's a con game, and Planned Parenthood needs to be exposed.
Yeah, on GuideStar, my search for the keywords Planned Parenthood came back with 218 results. I'm not going to go through them all, but there are a lot of Planned Parenthoods out there, and this is a conspiracy there to use our money for abortion. President Trump is taking more and more steps to restrict the use of U.S. funds overseas for the use of abortion.
That's a good first step.
That's a good first step. That's a good thing that also needed to be done, and it's being done. But this restricting the use of our funds, my funds, your funds, and the funds of other Christians who oppose abortion, use of those funds for organizations such as Planned Parenthood needs to be restricted. And we need to deal with that strongly. And I hope that President Trump can do that somewhere in his exciting daytime hours as he's fighting all these other forces of evil. I'm sure he will somehow get to that.
Again, the Chunga Constitution doesn't want to restrict anybody's freedoms, but let people who want to fund Planned Parenthood fund Planned Parenthood. Those
Yes.
who do not, do not.
Yes.
That's all. It's a simple request.
Yes, that is a simple request, and we make it hereby officially. All right, we'll be back in a minute or so with more news. From a Chinooka perspective, this next segment may be our last. You'll have to wait and see.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, April. No, we're already in May 17th, 2017. And we're the Chungi 8th year. I'm sorry, I get getting mixed up here. Chungi 8th year, 4th month, 22nd day by the heavenly calendar. During this last segment, I hope we don't have to end on this story, but Chelsea Manning, who is a transgender soldier who leaked some classified information and has been serving time in military prison as a result, is getting out of prison today. Chelsea Manning. And New York Times has a story on that, which Drudge linked to. Chelsea Manning is expected to walk freely out of the military prison at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, on Wednesday, bringing to a close one of the most extraordinary criminal cases in American history over the leaking of government secrets to the public. Sentenced to an unprecedented 35-year prison term for disclosing archives of secret files to WikiLeaks, Ms. Manning, they call her or him Ms. Manning, spent about 7 years in prison, already double the second longest sentence in any leaked case. Double the second longest sentence. She is set to be freed 28 years early because President Barack Obama, in one of his final acts, commuted the bulk of her remaining sentence. Both the military and Ms. Manning's legal team, seeking to avoid a media circus, disclosed few details about her release and immediate plans. The military would not say what time she would depart and said it would not permit reporters to wait near the gate to the prison barracks complex. Ms. Manning's support network, which raised up about $138,000 in online donations to help cover her initial living expenses in a GoFundMe.com campaign, has said she eventually intends to settle in Maryland, where she has family. But her supporters also have been, remember that it keeps talking to her as Ms. and she and her, but she is transgender, formerly male. But her supporters also have been secretive about where she will be for the next few weeks, hoping to give her mental and physical space and safety to adjust. I look forward to working with her in the coming days and weeks to provide her with the support and stability she wants and needs to heal and plan out the next stages of her life, said Chase Strangio, an American Civil Liberties Union lawyer who helped represent Ms. Manning in a suit over her medical treatment in prison. The traumas of the past few years will not simply evaporate when she walks out of the prison.
Of course.
So this was a case where, all right, so a soldier, regardless of the gender, the soldier leaked information, classified information to WikiLeaks and was convicted. And
What was the information?
I don't think I have a leak. I don't have that here. I don't. Maybe we can look up this on Wikipedia. Wiki has become so much of a part of our lives, hasn't it? But
And how come the founder of WikiLeaks cannot find a pardon? I mean,
yeah.
I don't understand why he is in such a predicament.
Mm-hmm. That is as interesting as, and we hope that President Trump will certainly commute that or to drop
the
that,
charges.
drop those charges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a hero in terms of transparency.
Mhm.
President Trump actually owes his election
Mhm.
to him.
And apparently, Julian Assange, in many ways, owes his position to this case of the Manning case. It says here that they also vaulted WikiLeaks and its founder Julian Assange to global prominence and put them at odds with the Obama administration. But it says that the Manning's leaks brought to light numerous hidden facts, including previously unknown civilian bystander killings in the Iraq War, backroom diplomatic dealings, and discussion of local corruption around the world, and intelligence assessments about Guantanamo Bay detainees.
The torturing of the
Well,
detainees.
the assessments about the detainees. So they're
Oh, okay.
what's going to happen if we release them and that kind of thing. Can you talk for a while I cough here?
Well, it just seems like a whole movement, probably inspired by God and the Holy Spirit to create more transparency,
That
what
is-
Father
yes.
called the high noon sun.
Yes.
And these people, Assange and others, are bringing to light a lot of the corruption and a lot of the misdeeds of politicians and people around the world. So I think time has come to let these people operate more freely.
I have to apologize to our audience. We don't have any cough buttons on our microphones. When I would do simultaneous translation, there would be a button on the microphone that I could push when I wanted to
really?
cough.
Okay.
But that would be the next stage in our development for our tech team to get a cough button. They're holding that. Okay, good. He's holding his thumb up there to get cough buttons on the microphones. I feel the same way, that this is also a trend towards the Cheonryuk, the transparency of Cheonryuk. And in Cheonryuk, the king has the power to declassify any document, and in fact, and documents that do not relate directly to national security cannot be classified in the first place.
Good. I like
Yeah.
that.
I can't remember the exact language, but that was the sense of it. Yes, and the king does get to declassify any document. And also, under the current United States of America Constitution, or under the laws anyway, the president gets to declassify any information that he wants to. He decides what's classified and what's not. And so when someone says, oh, the president shared classified information with the Russian ambassador, that actually cannot be true. Logically cannot be true. Because if the president shared it, it's not classified.
That's his prerogative.
It's his prerogative. It's not classified. It's his prerogative. So people need to remember that these are powers that we, have given the person that we elect as president. And of course, the Democrats elect says, "Oh, he shouldn't have been president in the first place." That's not what happened in November. But they still cannot accept that. But here in Chelsea Manning's case, I've forgotten, I think it was, what was her original name? It was Charles or something like that.
Probably Charles.
No, this case that this is anyway, Manning's case would
I think she became a female so that she could play the victim card
oh yeah.
more easily.
They don't, the media doesn't want us to even find out. Oh, here we go. Manning in April 2012. Bradley. He was born Bradley Edward Manning. It wasn't Charles, it was Bradley. In this case, yeah, this, I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing that this person is getting out of prison, having been convicted and having been sentenced to 35 years. We do, but anyway, it's happening today. That's all I can really say about that. I'm not sure whether we like this or not, that the person is getting out of prison. But
Well, maybe it sets the stage for Assange to be exonerated.
Yeah. And I think that was one of the conditions that Assange gave to coming back to the United States to possibly face the charges that are against him here, that Chelsea Manning would be pardoned. And she was not pardoned, but the bulk of her remaining sentence was commuted. And so that's playing into the situation there. And, well, now that Manning is out of prison, we'll see what Assange does. It says,
I think President Trump has not loosened that position on Assange, though, right? He still is calling him a criminal of sorts.
mm-hmm. But that's what the Obama administration was saying about Chelsea Manning as well, right up until the time that he commuted most of her sentence. Let's see, in Honduras, so we finish out this hour, at least 22 prisoners from the 18th Street Gang, otherwise known as Barrio 18, escaped a military-guarded prison in Honduras. Prison officials at the Marco Aurelio Soto prison were not exactly sure when the escape happened, but believe it to be sometime during the week of May 8th. 22 prisoners escaped, and you're not really sure when it happened. Sometime during the week of May 8th, which is already a couple weeks ago. Prisoners were locked up in a special Scorpion unit for members of the notorious Barrio 18 gang, one of the strongest organized crime groups in Central America. Telesur noted officials did not realize that the prisoners had escaped until days later when custodians noticed they were gone.
Top security.
Rosa Gudillo, the head of the National Penitentiary Institute, said in a news conference that the escape happened because the prisoners wanted to avoid going to a new facility. The prisoners fled because arrangements are being made to transfer them to a new high-security jails. I would hope so. And they don't want to go to those places, Gudillo said. Due to previous prison breaks, Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez ordered the military to guard the country's largest prisons. Marco Aurelio Soto prison, located just north of Honduras' capital of Tegucigalpa, is reportedly the country's most overpopulated prison with 17,000 inmates, give or take 22, occupying a space designed to house 8,000. Wow. Prison officials keep Barrio 18 gang members in special facilities that are equipped to handle violence and criminal activities
and
common
security
among prison gangs. I don't like to laugh at other countries. I know that people in those countries will definitely not like it when we do so, but still, you got to laugh. I'm sorry, people in Honduras. We here in the United States need a laugh this morning. All right, so I'm sorry that we're laughing at your expense, but thank you. You've served us very well, and we will repay you can laugh at us, you can laugh at the Democrats, you can laugh at Planned Parenthood, you can laugh at me, Tim Elder, all you want. Don't worry about that. Thank you very much for that laugh. The football player Kaepernick is running out of liberal cities to play in. Tuesday, during a Fox Sports 1 Speak for Yourself debate about whether or not the Seattle Seahawks would be a good fit for free agent Colin Kaepernick, co-host Colin Cowherd joked that Kaepernick is running out of liberal cities that would welcome the controversial quarterback who protested police shootings during the national anthem in 2016. He's running out of liberal cities. San Francisco, Seattle, Cowherd said. Unless Vermont joins the league, he's running out of liberal cities. Well, I don't know, would all the population of Vermont fill a stadium?
No.
He
They
later,
believe in nonviolence. They would never go to a football game.
oh, that's right. Unless they were padded or something
Right,
like that, yeah.
Touch football.
Touch football, maybe. Oh, I don't know. Some touch football games get pretty violent. I could tell you stories. He later added, I don't think he's a franchise quarterback. Seattle's probably the best fit. Oh,
There
my
is
goodness.
freedom, and then there is responsibility.
Yes, there is. Yes.
He's free to do that, but he's got to suffer the consequences.
All right. Thank you very much, Honduras and Kaepernick, for helping us to finish off the morning on a lighter note. And we are now coming to the close of our broadcast. And we thank you for joining us on this day. And we hope that you have a wonderful day. We are filled with God's blessing. And we ask that that God be with you today. And so God bless, Godspeed, and may his kingdom come one way or another.